Explosions rock Ukrainian port hours after grain deal, which was absolutely no surprise to anyone. Did they learn nothing from all those humanitarian corridors? In German television, a member of our military said that Putin was clever to sign this deal shortly before. Agius Lauro makes a visit to some African countries that Russia will be seen in a better light as the food supply for Africa partially returns to normal. Wow. Also, I have a liar of People are still believing in Putin's or Russia credibility. It's mind-boggling. I thought Trudeau was right but had no idea he would be proven right so quickly. Guess everyone can now agree never trust Russia. And I truly mean never. At this point even the Taliban would be more trustworthy. I guess they were pressured by some naive idiots from other countries at important positions to at least try this deal. Hopefully they now see that making deals with Russia is a waste of time. Russia is a terrorist state. I am Jack's complete lack of surprise. Russialese. I'm surprised that Russia still has accurate ranged missiles. The agreements signed by Russia aren't worth the price of the sheet of paper they are written on. Remember when Russia at least waited for a week before breaking the agreements they signed. They can't even produce normal white paper in Great Mother Russia anymore as the sanctions have deprived them of the necessary bleaching agents. The agreements signed with Russia need to be reversed to see what they will actually do. We promise not to bomb, we will bomb. Maybe they need to sign an agreement that Russia will bomb port cities, which will make them stop because they never adhere to the agreements. We should just print their contracts on toilet paper from now on. That way they are still useful afterwards. Is anyone surprised by this even slightly? That's impossible, right? So more than the entire Russian economy got it. Who knew that Russia, which signed a deal in 1994 promising never to invade Ukraine, could be trusted to honor their agreements? I'll just leave this or in Wikipedia, org or wiki or piece for our time here. I really hope we learned something today. There can be no agreements with terrorists. O putler cal na cara de todo o mundo civilizado. Absolute scumbags. This prove again there should be no illusions here. Any accord with Putin's Russia is going to be trampled, and the same goes with any peace, as long as Russia is not defeated beforehand and completely removed from Ukraine. At this point, I am rooting for the Ukrainian offensive coordinating with Russian partisans to liberate Moscow. Explosions have rocked a key Ukrainian port just a day after Kiev and Moscow reached a landmark deal to allow the resumption of grain exports. Several blasts hit the western city of Odessa early on Saturday morning. The cause of the explosions is unclear. Under the terms of Friday's deal, Russia agreed not to target ports while grain shipments are in transit. The UN had described the deal as a beacon of hope following months of conflict. Naive fools. Putin has been always breaking deals since the first ceasefires back in March. Did anyone really think he would stop just because it would cause a food crisis? That is his aim. Cause a crisis and blame it on the West. Russia agreed not to target ports while grain shipments are in transit. Russia can just say they were targeting a hospital or school that was near the port, and the missile went a bit off course and hit the port facility by accident. Making deals with Russia and them, breaking them immediately, would show the world that they are unreliable and not trustworthy as a trade partner in any kind. The cause of the explosions is unclear. 2-caliber missiles landed, 2 intercepted. Russians have always been breaking agreements with anyone, including their own citizens, period. For Ukrainians, the wake up call was the massacre near Ilovaisk in 2014, when the Russian armed forces have directly intervened into the war in Donbass for the first time. Ukrainian military was encircled as they were only minding the front line within Ukraine and not the border. An agreement to allow for a retreat of the Ukrainian military without their armaments was signed, but Russians started a bloodbath instead, killing almost everyone there. So yeah, Russia always gaslights you, then backstabs you, and then makes it look as if nothing ever happened. We learned our lesson in 2014. Into 2022, or you learn our the world and seemingly pry. February, Zelensky, I did. Russia later. There were no ships in transit, so we did not violate the agreement. This is the West trying to smear us. That just means they'll blow the ship up after it leaves port. This reminds me of the Winter War. Right before the ceasefire took effect, the Soviets unleashed their artillery one last time as a final fuck you to the Finns, who stopped a full annexation. I hope that when the ceasefire comes, Ukraine has loaded guns and rockets pointed at Russia. I can't wait for the ceasefire deal. That's hilariously evil. I don't actually find it funny, but it's absurd how bad it is. They made the deal just to completely renege on it straight after in the worst way. This megalomaniac has to be stopped. It honestly feels like Putin's literally trying to be a cartoon villain at this point. What the fuck? This megalomaniac, there are millions of them. Putin is an evil wizard with Russians in his thrall. More than half the population is like this. We need to bleed their army white and then see how cheeky they are feeling. This is why idiots who call for peace with Russia are wasting everyone's time. Russia never abides by its agreements. The only way is to force them into opposition where they do not have the ability of breaking the agreement. Hey, the Ukrainian military will give the invaders peace. The peace of a shallow grave. Well, Russia's compliance with the agreement lasted several whole hours. Little steps at US. This is the perfect time for the Americans to give Ukraine some Patriot systems to prevent further violations of the agreement and a few Reaper drones to monitor the area and prevent attacks on grain shipments. Then, in a few weeks, when the Russians claim to have shot down all 15 of the 4 Reapers delivered, ship 40 more of them. Well, seems like a good reason to give them 300 range ammo. Honestly, at the very least, stuff like this should ramp up substantially as systems sent to Ukraine. We need to send so many systems that no Russian plane can fly in their soil. They need anti-ship missiles in the port cities. Trusting Russia is basically the same as trusting the local crackhead who has robbed the convenience store 7 times already, but this time he said, "Nah, bro, it's all good. You won't see me here again on God Furf." The Tin Kremlin stands for truth, and Ha stands for honor. I like this one. Maybe if someone takes hostages like a terrorist, makes their demands like a terrorist, blows up agreements like a terrorist, maybe. I don't know. They are terrorists. Russia understands only military violence and opportunism. No deals, appeasements or agreements by you Honor usa will bind them unless they can be enforced politically and militarily. Russia needs to be utterly humiliated. Ukrainian pilots in 15s would help that cause. Russia need to be utterly approximately humiliated, approximately annihilated. Russia has become the top global terrorist state and should be treated as such. Always has been. You don't negotiate with terrorists. In reality, states often negotiate with terrorists, mostly back channels. Removed. Removed. Stay safe, brother. Shocker. Russia signs an agreement and immediately violates it. There is nothing that Russia enjoys more than violating treaties, women, children, and human rights. Did they seriously think the Russians could be trusted? You can't negotiate with terrorist states. Asked by Thebig what the UN would do if Russia did keep its word, the Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the UN has no instruments for that, but I think that would be an absolutely unacceptable scandal. Yeah, I'm not really optimistic about this deal. If you break the rules, I will clutch me pearls dose sound like a convincing deterrent against rule breaking. The undosed have any power on its own. It's just an upgraded version of the League of Nations designed to get countries talking to each other. What's supposed to happen now is that other countries see Russia violating agreements and sanction them in response. The real question is if any of them will do that. They have no honor. Well, I thought that was clear after a couple days into the war when they started doing all the war crimes. How utterly predictable. Oh no, did Russia lie again? Shock. Pathological Leo breaks a promise, it's somehow a surprise. I sort of figured that Russia would never honor an economic deal with a country it doesn't consider to be a legitimate society, or its people as legitimate human beings. Russians yet again proving that their word is absolutely useless, almost less than useless. Because Russia is run by gangsters who hold the truth itself in contempt. Anyone with half a brain who's been paying attention to Russia's commitment to anything should have been expecting this. It's borderline criminal of the UN to have touted this deal as a beacon of hope. You act like they're idiots. Perhaps act like they know what they are doing and see this as a test to show the world what lengths Russia is willing to go. Not everything you see is simple action or simple response. There is room for complex thought in this world, and to assume the most powerful people in this world aren't using it is naive at best. The UN does not know how to deal with lunatic dictators, and they are too naive. Another big problem is that US, who is in the Security Council, both Russia and China, they will veto any proposal against them. The UN secretary is a fucking idiot. Time to sink the Russian fleet. The Kremlin is to be trusted as highly as a hungry cat around an open can of salmon. Attack. Let's go already. Shocked and amazed. Seriously, when I heard about the deal, I expected Russia to fuck up the whole thing within a week. We did make it a damn day. Can't wait until Putin is gone. Forever. Russians can't be trusted. Who would have thought? I mean, in 1991, Russia agreed it would never invade Ukraine if they returned Soviet nukes to Russian control. More recently, in 2014, Russia agreed that it would not invade for normalization of the situation in Crimea. There is no point in a deal with Russia. Sadly, the best Ukraine can do is bog down Russia in a quagmire until they leave Afghanistan style. Side note. In 1979, the Soviets agreed not to invade Afghanistan in exchange for assurances from the Amin government was loyal to Moscow. They invaded in 1980. Yeah. Read about the Soviet liberation of Poland in 1945. They were supposed to be the good guys. This is why any peace negotiations with Russia are pointless. They'll go back on their word and do some heinous shit like this not even a day later. Just another reminder for all the idiots saying Ukraine needs to negotiate with Russia peace to achieve the Russian government lying. Did no one watch a movie from the 80s? I'm just happy the Russians are the bad guys again. Russia is a terrorist state. Not only it is murdering and raping children, but also doing everything to achieve world famine. Imagine making deals with terrorists. What did people expect? Who would have thought otherwise? Get people there again and shell them. A shame. This is why Russia can never be trusted. It was trying to figure out why they would even sign the agreement at all. It was to get the concessions from Lithuania on shipping to Kaliningrad. No. Should tell Russia the rail is now closed and everything must now go by boat. Fuck Putin and any who support him. And any who are supported. Continue to terrorists with no honor. Turkey's defense minister said Russian officials had denied carrying out the strikes. Who the fuck else would it be? Let this be lesson to everyone who wants Ukraine to negotiate peace with Russia. We can collectively just lose patience with Russia, right? This is bullshit. Their invasion is bullshit. Someone with balls just needs to back a cement truck into his bunker. All these things Russia are doing is just dealing more and more long-term damage to themselves. Why should any country now sign a treaty or trade deal or anything when they go against it every single time? And there are still people claiming that Russia is not a terrorist state, a terror Russia. I'm living there close to the sea, heard missiles flying above me house while I was hiding in the basement, not pleasant at all. Russia is definitely a terrorist's country. It's tempting to see it as an attempt by Moscow to wreck it, or at least set the terms. But that seems to run counter to yesterday's statement by Moscow's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, that Russia's responsibilities were clearly set out. Gestures broadly at Russia. Russia always lies. Just assume they are lying and you'll be right a lot more than wrong.